Ready?
Ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's May 18th, 2026 meeting of the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners. We will now call the meeting over, and thanks for everyone for joining us. The first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Another item might be just to update Alfalfa Fire District, maybe coming our way, but I don't know.
Been talking to a lot of people about it,
Just to mention it, we don't have a lot of info yet, but
just so everyone knows that'll come up during other items.
so that'd be, it's kind of like adding another item because it's not really a decision of any sort. So with that, I don't know if is that an appropriate way to acknowledging that there's a topic that I know of that I'll bring up under other items.
Yeah, that's fine. And then as long as the original motion includes that amendment.
Did she make a motion?
I did, I said so moved, so.
Can I
Oh,
amend it?
surely.
Okay, so it's been amended. I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Vote, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne? Yes. And Chair votes yes. Okay, so we'll proceed with this agenda plus the addition of the Alfalfa Fire District as a discussion item. Citizen input. Is there anyone in the room? Or is there anyone with their hand raised online who would like to provide public comment today?
No hands raised.
I talked to someone, but I guess they didn't make it, so.
Seeing none, we can move on to our main agenda. We'll move on to commissioner announcements at this point. Are there any commissioner announcements at the beginning of this meeting? Seeing none, we can move on to our consent agenda. One item on the consent agenda today.
Move approval of consent agenda with our one item for the medical examiner services.
I did, I'll second it, but I did want to make a comment. Because I looked up both of the doctors that had applied.
If you want to say more about that. or
No, I just wanted to say it. It looked like the one doctor was actually like from Albany or something. I mean, the one that wasn't approved. Did he have a local practice?
That's Dr. Fletcher, and he is a medical examiner over other counties and a private pathologist,
Okay. So,
but he does not live here now.
okay, that's all I get to find out, so. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes,
Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes.
here we go. Thank
Thank you
you.
for our team members from the DA's office for being here.
Good.
Moving on to our regular agenda. First item is Community Development Department draft fiscal year 2026 to 27 work plan work session.
Thank you, Chair Chang, members of the commission, Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director. And wanted, before I introduce some of our management team, just want to present for you the fiscal year 26-27 work plan and the 2025 annual report. The Board of County Commissioners will hold a public hearing on June 3rd. And today I wanted to invite members of our management team. You guys want to maybe slide your chairs over. I would like to introduce them and then, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, before they're going to provide some background on or provide a highlight of some of the projects and issues that they're tackling. But I thought for anybody that might be listening online, they probably would benefit to hear kind of what goes into the work plan, how it's informed, but if I may, just because it's, we don't get to do this that
Mhm.
often.
Hello, everyone.
Introduce you, to members of our management team. So we'll start on my left. Lauren Street is our new Community Wildfire Protection Supervisor. In our Natural Resources team, we have Todd Cleveland, our on-site police fire manager. Jeff Williams is our relatively new code enforcement supervisor. Krista Appleby is our building official, and then to my right, Will Gross is our planning manager. Jennifer Lawrence, who is our coordinated services supervisor, couldn't be here with us today. She's attending a family wedding for this week, so she's out enjoying some very high quality time with her family. So if I may, really quickly before turning back over to the chair and the board for individual overviews, I think it's helpful to provide some background in terms of what goes into the work plan. First, for anyone that's online, in today's packet, there is a copy of the fiscal year 2026 work plan. You can also, if you have your favorite web search engine, you can search Deschutes County Community Development Department work plan, and you will see this draft. And then if you're so inclined, you can see previous work plans and see the journey that CDD has been on for several years. What goes into, well, to provide context of what the work plan represents, it includes CDD's mission statement, which is to provide coordinated services that facilitate orderly growth and development. It references the board's 2026 goals and policies. It describes each of our 5 divisions, and natural resources as part of the planning division, but they are singled out as well, since this is a new program of ours. And then we also provide an overview of our operational and fiscal structure, including performance measures. What informs the work plan, we have carryover projects. These are projects that may have just started a few months ago, which were started towards the tail end of a fiscal year and then transitioned into a new fiscal year. We have projects sometimes that last longer than a year. We do receive grants that help fund certain projects. The legislature often provides direction per the Board of County Commissioners support to undertake certain amendments to Deschutes County Code. And then ultimately the public has the ability to inform this work plan. And it's an excellent opportunity to state that through this process, CDD, the Board of County Commissioners, really values input and questions as it pertains to our work plan. So for anyone that's listening, written comments can be provided to the board, to CDD, and of course, there's a public hearing on June 3rd. Just a couple other quick remarks. I believe that the Community Development Department continues to provide exemplary levels of service to our customers, and credit really goes to this management team, other colleagues who are not in attendance right now, their staff. And it's their leadership and our staff's commitment that allows us to be adaptive in an ever-changing work environment. So the credit goes to all of them and our staff that we have within CDD. So that was my kind of just overview, but Mr. Chairman, refer to you, but everyone here is going to want to take up all of your afternoon, but I just respectfully asked if they wanted to spend a few minutes again, just highlighting a project or two or any issues that they're setting their sights on in 2027. But thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you all for being here, and I'd like to hear a little bit of overview, summary highlights from the different divisions of CDD.
Oh, yeah. Well, so just sense of, are you looking for feedback, or, I mean, this is draft right now, we're gonna have a public hearing on this. I mean, how much of a wordsmithing exercise are we getting into today, do you think?
It's not a land use proceeding, so if there's issues or topics that you want to discuss today, that's certainly helpful. There's going to be a public hearing, so you could, of course, reiterate those observations, or if something comes up between now and June 3rd, we would like to hear it. So it's really, I think, just an organic opportunity again to interface with the board as a whole kind of management team, because we only get to do it every, couple times a year if we're lucky.
Yeah, I can certainly start. Well, Will Grove's your planning manager, and we get to see each other a lot. So this is a shortened version of my 45-minute presentation. So let me know when you want to zoom in. Of course, planning is comprised of current planning and long-range planning. You see my current planners with some regularity in front of you for quasi-judicial matters, and lots of land use applications. Land use applications over the past year on year, were very slightly down, 3%. But we're seeing bigger applications, lots of plan amendments, zone changes. There's currently 8 of those in the hopper, so lots of those in motion. Note that we conducted 7 public hearings with you in the past year compared to 8 2024. So it's really a stable book of business associated with that. On the long range side, there's a lot coming up. Of course, you recall all the things we've done in the past year, and that perhaps most pleasingly, the dark skies lighting ordinances. People are broadly satisfied with that, and a lot of public interest in it. But objective updates, a lot of work in that space, making sure we're responsive to legislative opportunities that come through each year. Looking a little bit to the future with long range, is that's what they do. There's the comp plan, 2040 comp plan out there that's been remanded from LUBA. There's a big need to goal 5 cultural resources. So they've been working with DLCD has been working with the tribes to provide opportunities for tribes to engage with local governments with regards to potential impacted resources. And so there's some updates to code that are required in association with that. We just had the work session in front of the Planning Commission for the Sisters UGB expansion. So Sisters looking to add to the city. Some real neat opportunities out of the legislative session this year, including farm stores. That's a sort of a super extra powered farm stand where there's additional retail opportunities associated with certain types of farms. In addition, the Tumalo community plans in process. So we had our first public meeting out there. The Planning Commission has received community engagement. There'll be a series of meetings going through the summer to gauge the community's interest in legislative changes.
Terrebonne community.
Terrebonne community. I keep saying Tumalo. Did I say Tumalo?
So
One of these days.
It's okay.
I thought I was tracking.
We knew what you were
I just wanted to
saying.
double-
Yeah. We just got through the last one. Brain's still on it. Something to note is that, we're a little stretched right now. We've got some team members out for family leave. It's, summer vacation season. And so definitely feeling a little bit thin compared to the opportunities and, the things that we'd like to do in this space. And doing some very careful planning in terms of trying to make sure that we get you all that you're interested in seeing in the coming year. We brought this package in front of the Planning Commission, and they were broadly supportive of what we've done in the past year and looking at some of the opportunities to go forward. They put a real emphasis on opportunities for childcare facilities. So we've been kind of watching with the state for opportunities, both legislatively and our code, to make sure that we're making all of those opportunities available to providers with as little governmental friction as possible. So anticipating, with your blessing or you package forward, make sure that those are allowed in all the zones where they're allowed, with a reduced overhead associated with that. Planning Commission was also interested in transportation capacity and emergency access. There was some discussion. I think there was, as we've watched communities that have significant wildfires, really being protective of the ways that people can get out of those situations. Evacuation planning and that, and interjurisdictional roadway coordination. A lot of continued interest in wildfire and defensible space from the Planning Commission. And with the Planning Commission was really just appreciative of the latitude the board's given them to explore a variety of issues. And they're excited for all the opportunities that'll be coming through their space in the future. I'm gonna take a pause there and see if there's a particular direction or question you have or anything you wanted to engage with.
Would you guys like us to give feedback on specific parts of the work plan that you just addressed now, or go through all the presentations first?
it might be easier just to hear the full ensemble, and then if that works out, I mean, we're of course deferential to what the board would like to do, but since there's a lot of times there's integration between the various divisions, but it's at the pleasure of the board.
That works for me. Wanted to make sure I didn't miss my opportunity.
Yeah. Not at all. Great.
I'm Krista Appleby, the new building official. I just thought I'd touch base on where we are today and where we're navigating to. As you're aware, we're in a period of transition. Aaron Susi was promoted to assistant building official, so now we're backfilling folks to cover what I am trying to transition out of commercial plan review, and Aaron out of commercial inspection. To some of our other team members who have been certified, and they're now just getting some refinement in how to apply those codes in those different commercial aspects. We also have a couple of inspectors who are in cross training, so they'll be what we call a 4-hat residential inspector, which means we can send one of them to the site to do all the necessary inspections for efficiencies. We may be looking later in the season to hire a residential plans examiner to backfill the commercial one that's moving up. So lots of moving parts at the moment, but everything seems to be moving forward in the right direction. We implemented fire hardening. That seems to be going relatively smoothly. Lots of questions. We did some targeted email heads up to folks before that deadline to remind them they should be planning for that. We've been meeting with a few building suppliers to discuss things, coordinating with the city of Bend. We recently adopted it as well, so that we're consistent in our calls. Just doing a lot of coordination and things moving forward.
How much does wildfire resilient building materials inspection, how much does that add to a typical inspection? I mean, is that?
To the inspection itself?
Yeah, I mean, is it adding 20 minutes? Is it adding an hour to the process?
I don't know, we've dialed it into that level of time commitment. My gut is it depends on what wall mechanism they use to meet the wall assembly fire hardening. If it's simply a siding that's ignition resistant or non-combustible, that's a visual we would see no matter what. If they're doing an assembly that requires something behind the siding, that's gonna add a second inspection because we need to see that layer first before they can put the siding on. But that's the biggest one, I think, that would be an additional inspection, if you will. You know, looking at the ventilation, we see that now, so it's not hidden.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I got up on a ladder and looked real close up to vent blocks in my house that was built about 5 or 6 years ago. It's 1/8-inch screen. It's really small. I was surprised. I was worried it was gonna be bigger. And I'm like, oh, I think it's already there. So this is a house that was built with cement siding and the vent blocks and I assume the windows are rated the way they should be and the roofing. So I think it's already the spec from half a dozen years ago.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Dare, you mentioned your house was the same way when we were
Well,
going
it was
through
built in
this.
2005.
Right, so
Yes.
a lot of these materials were
Yeah,
implemented
already.
earlier. There's just a few things that are being done differently.
I finally confirmed the vent blocks though. I went to look real close.
That's good.
Good afternoon, Jeff Williams, code enforcement supervisor. As Peter alluded to earlier, there's been a lot of changes with code enforcement. We fortunately lost Angie and Dan to different positions within the county. We have hired 2 new staff who are in the process of training and taking on cases as we speak right now. So we're back up to a team of 4. As of this morning, we have opened up 183 violations. We've closed 253 and we have 621 pending violations. 45 new violations in the last month. Approximately a year ago, trying to catch up on some of these older cases, we decided to take a different approach and send out a pending notice, which was to notify a property owner that they have a code enforcement complaint on their property, that the case has not been assigned this was kind of their opportunity to take care of it before it does become a sign and go through the normal code enforcement process. We've sent to date that I keep track of. I can't include Dan's. I didn't see what his tracking record was, but 136 plus notices. We've been able to close 53 of those cases. 52 of those are in progress. 22 people have responded and we've assigned. So we're getting a pretty robust response from people, taking care of the violations. That's what it. We've
But
also,
before you got in the job, Donna Lane is still a problem, and it's been a problem for a lot of years. It's still up there, it's a one-way into that neighborhood, and it is a fire nightmare if, you know, if the match lands in some of the wood there. So I just happened to run into somebody from Donna Lane, and I think the people they used to call me all the time, I think they finally left. So when you have a moment, you might wanna look at that one again.
we will, I have had phone conversations, people calling me directly, and we have closed that case with a capped lien. Back in February of 2024, the property did sell back in November, changed hands. When I spoke to some of the neighbors there, I asked for them to please submit a new complaint. It could be very simple, solid waste continuing violation. I would be more than happy to bump that to the top, given the concerns of the
longevity?
neighbors. Yes,
They need to submit a new complaint.
it would be more preferential if we had a community complaint.
Oh,
Since
Lord.
we've already gone through our processes, for us to address it again.
Okay. Okay, Donna Lane people, please, file a new complaint.
So on that note, Commissioner, we've also been working on a voluntary abatement compliance agreement to where the property owner, say a solid waste violation, agrees to have their property cleaned up. We work with a contractor, they clean it, provide us an invoice. We take that invoice and create a lien on the property to get our money back once the property sells or changes hands or whatever. So we've had a few of those. We have one in progress now off South Century. Carolyn's worked on a couple and has a couple more in the pipeline. So that's been really helpful for us as well to get some of these longer nuisance properties cleaned up. Right. And given all the notices and the workload, I just, want to say that Deputy Connor's been a huge help for us, sending out these notices, doing inspections, taking photographs for us, and we can't get out there just based on the volume of complaints we're getting. So I think she told me a while back that she had either the second or third most miles logged in the county on her car. So she was pretty proud of that. So she's awesome and does a lot for us. Thank you, Lord.
Well, thank you. As I say, I'm making the relationship. I lost track who to send the information to, so now I'm sending it directly to you, CC and Peter on this. Thank you.
Any questions you have, feel free to.
Todd Cleveland, on-site wastewater manager, groundwater protection as well. So we have 4 field staff, myself, and an admin assistant that work in the program. I have 2 trainees. One is very new, now tagging along. So we're a little bit technically short-staffed on field staff at the moment. A little bit of a backlog. I noticed we have had more repairs. It feels like repairs are going up because places are older, right? So we're seeing more failures of systems and having to do repairs. Repairs can get complicated because people get their system, they build their house, and they do other things to their property. And often that impacts what we're able to do when we're repairing it. We've monitored over 2,000 ATT systems or advanced treatment systems. That includes sample pressure distribution systems. Compliance rate was around 99% last year, which is far better than every other county. We have more O&M records than any other county in the state, including Clackamas and Lincoln. They're second, third. Surprisingly that we're that high because it's doesn't take many to feel like we have a lot of work to do to try to get people in compliance. So if you have 50 people that you're dealing with, it can take a lot of time. So we're working on efficiencies and improvements and coordinating with DEQ regarding some of the, how to manage these programs, this program. Um. Part of that is I got to sit I participated in the rule advisory committee last year, and there's been new updates to the rules that went into effect in January. And there's a section on operation and maintenance reporting, and it's been created in one location within the rules, which makes it a lot easier to send people to that place and communicate that information to the service providers and to the property owners. So it makes it clearer to be able to identify what the responsibilities are of the service provider and of what the property owner's responsibilities are. So hopefully that will lead to easier compliance as well, lead people to buy into that program. Moving forward for my projects, so get my staff fully trained, they can implement some improvements in the O&M reporting program. But you know, we're supporting a new alternative treatment technology that's a nitrogen reducing system called a FujiClean. They just became listed last year. They're not moving very quickly, but to get established with distributors and so forth. But I met with one of their company's representatives with the service provider installer from South County, and we're working on a project to do a repair upgrade of a property using the FujiClean system that is equivalent at least to the best performing technology based on data from New York, where they've implemented upgrades there. So, you know, hopefully this will go well. We use it as a training for the region, if not the state, so that installers and service providers can know what we need to look at, and inspectors will know what they need to look at when these systems are installed.
So this DEQ, this system has, this ATT system has DEQ approval already?
Yes, so they get listed, they have to go through a NSF certification, then go to TQ, they become listed. And part of the availability of these systems, they have to have certified maintenance providers, certified installers, and then we, as inspectors, have to kind of know what we're supposed to look for to make sure that everything's working the way it's supposed to, and being installed according to manufacturer's requirements. So that's what we're intending to kind of host a session like that, and hopefully these will provide another option for people in South Deschutes County, and frankly all over Deschutes County.
In the past, you told us about advanced ATT systems that were even better, and removed even more nitrate than the kind of standard ones in use that are being installed, recently. And you had said that was not certified or registered yet with the state of Oregon. So is this FujiClean that system that you were describing?
It's
Or is
one
there
of the-
even another one?
It is one of the systems that I was talking about because of the data from New York. So to give you an idea, from the Lapine project, the Orenco system produced about 17 milligrams per liter discharged on average. This system is doing about 12 milligrams per liter. Some of the systems that we're installing under variance proposals that are pretty significant addition add-on units that have upflow filters, wood chip filters, they get up below 5 milligrams per liter. Those are probably about $50,000 to install, or less. That's my estimate based on what I've heard. And nothing's getting less expensive, but those are special designs that have been through the variance process with Oregon DEQ. That's how we permit them. So they're not listed or approved. So, but that technology is significant. We're still utilizing the ATT pods and the sand filters with those units, so that's why they're so expensive. And then in addition, probably, hopefully, we will see some money or funds come into Fund 296 for using for some groundwater protection measures going forward next year, and we'll explore some of our programs at work, like our loan programs and the rebate programs, and whatever, bringing that back to discuss with the board.
As that money comes available. It would be really helpful to have a sense of how many retrofits that could actually, that amount of money could actually support. And then just to kind of hold that number up against how many we actually need to make an impact in terms of nitrate loading in South County groundwater. I suspect we don't really have enough money to make the kind of impact that we need. But it would just be helpful to get a sense of proportions.
So Todd, I just talked to a homeowner in Tumalo. And they ended up spending, she's gonna send me an analysis, like $30,000 for a new drain field, and they had to have lone pine dirt on their drain field. Yeah, anyway, she is not a happy camper. And, yeah, 30,000 for a new drain field, so.
So that sounds like a cap and fill system. So that's an older version of an alternative system it was actually created in the 70s as a geographic rule. The biggest issue with why that's cost so much is the fill material is limited in its availability and they have to haul it. Well, with diesel fuel prices at, the cost that they are, the prices have just kept going up to haul that soil in. That was a system where they would you dig shallow trenches and you add fill over the whole area and plant vegetation. It's where we have really poor soil conditions, so you don't have very good soil depth. It's a cap and fill system. There's literally thousands and thousands of those in Central Oregon. It's become much more expensive to put those in because of the amount of rock, and then the cost of the fill material has skyrocketed.
And then they wanted to plant whatever grass, something on it,
Yes.
and then is their water gonna be turned off, so is that grass gonna die this summer anyway?
So they should plant native grasses to grow on top of it. That's what we recommend.
Cheatgrass?
No, I hope yes.
That's
I
the
hope
native
that's
grass at my house.
I hope fescue, things like that.
Seagrass is not native.
So that's what we recommend.
That's what-
And that's a requirement to establish erosion control. And it helps with evapotranspiration ability. But yeah, it's easy.
Why
to
can't we
think
give a
certainly.
report?
It's a conventional system.
I know Neighbor Impact's ready for some funds, because they've got a replacement fund that people are queued up for a little bit, so I've heard about that recently, so it'd be wonderful if that's some money flowing. And that'll be direct systems in the ground as soon as possible, as soon as the money's there, right?
Yes.
And I think it's, just to reiterate what Todd mentioned, when that happens, our expectation is to come back to the board and obviously describe the amount, the programs that have been funded in the past, identify the types of questions that the chair identified, because ultimately we're going to be looking to the board, project that direction of how we can, where's the best place, where does the board find the best place for that investment to protect groundwater quality in southern Deschutes County. And where this, although the needs are very, very high, the opportunity of getting funds in 296 in the amount that one of the quadrants could sell for is something that we haven't seen ever. And so I'm hopeful that later this fall or early winter, we will be able to come back to the board with that amount, with probably the timing with an annual groundwater protection report and with new commissioners. And get that direction and to make sure that we're leveraging and maximizing the partnerships, and more importantly, or as importantly, assuring that the board is providing that clear direction. Just given the level of need.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Lauren Street. I am the Community Wildfire Protection Supervisor, and I'm still getting used to saying that title. So, yeah, thank you for having me. I've heard kind of a through line of transition, and I'm just gonna keep that going. So, as you all know, our department was a standalone department, and we were previously housed at the road department. And we are in the process of transitioning over to CDD, and I just want to thank you all for your support in that process. It's been a really great process thus far, and we're excited to be housed there. Just a couple of things from our looking back the last year in review. We've continued to facilitate regular meetings for Project Wildfire, the Associated Neighborhood Coalition, which has grown exponentially over the last year. We've continued hosting the Deschutes County Noxious Weed Board meetings. We just rolled into the break for the summer. We expanded the Project Wildfire Steering Committee by adding 3 new members. We completed fire fuel breaks for the Central Oregon Irrigation District as well as the City of Bend. The City of Bend fire fuel break was almost 80 acres, 200 feet wide, and provided some protection for a couple hundred community members along its boundary. We completed larger scale fuel reduction projects for the 7th Mountain community, Points West community. We've assisted the Deschutes Land Trust in doing the fuels mitigation project in protection of the Newberry Estates community in Lapine. We also completed a fuel reduction project for the community of Plainview. And as always, we're continually treating our Deschutes County owned tax lots for fuels mitigation. We also completed the update for the 2025 Greater Sisters Community Wildfire Protection Plan. We were able to host and put on the 2025 Fire Fuel Reduction Grant Program, which this last year we were able to fund 53 communities in Deschutes County. So that's more than we have in previous years. We were also able to put on the 2025 Spring Sweat Equity Bin Rental Program and awarded 30 communities. And we offered that again this spring and we're able to award 32 communities. Just a couple of metrics to represent the growth of these programs. In 2025, we saw 40 applications come in for the Spring Sweat Equity Bin Rental Program, and we saw 70 applications come in this spring. And so I think that just represents the education and outreach that's being done by the broader Central Oregon wildfire prevention community. And these programs often lead communities to obtain Firewise recognition. And see, these are great programs for communities to submit proposals to do their fuels reduction work, and it also encourages them to become Firewise. We also, through our Noxious Weed Board, we're able to treat 42 private tax lots or assist in treatments in 42 private tax lots for yellow flag iris along the Deschutes River in partnership with the Oregon Department of Ag. A couple other metrics that I wanted to share. So for our fire free program, the 10-year average for cubic yards of debris delivered to either transfer stations or not landfill have roughly been just over 28,000 cubic yards. We saw a slight uptick in 2024 to just over 29,000. And then at the end of 2025, we received the metric back that it jumped up to 46,996 cubic yards delivered. So we don't have our metrics back. It's currently fire free week, so take your material in. But yeah, we're excited to see what that number comes back as this year. Because it just shows the work that the community is doing to bring their material there and to reduce fire fuels. Another metric that I'd like to share is our number of Firewise communities in Deschutes County. We have 101 active Firewise communities, which makes us #1 in the state and likely top 3 in the nation for Firewise communities per county. Something else I'd like to add in there is our total is 124, which includes archived communities and pending applications. So 101 is active, and most of those additional that make up the 124 are pending applications from new Firewise communities. So that's a significant jump from December 2024 to December 2025. If my memory serves, I think we had 68 fire waste communities December 2024.
And we had 35 in 2019 when I first got here.
Yeah.
So
So
people
we're
are definitely hearing the message.
Yeah, absolutely. And the model of the grant programs that we offer, we do require communities to be firewise. And I really think that encourages communities to start going in that direction. And just a couple of last things. We did receive funding to work on our community wildfire protection plans. Currently, we have 7, and we're in the process of combining all of those. We'll keep each area's action plan separate. So that's easy to navigate once folks get into the document, but a lot of the language that's in there can be combined to represent the entire county. And then, of course, we're always going to continue to offer fuel reduction grant opportunities to county residents moving forward. And we're always looking for grant opportunities. And in the end of 2025, found out that we were awarded the Community Wildfire Defense Grant for just over $3.4 million for the Greater Lapine area. And we recently were also awarded the BLM Good Neighbor Authority funds for $275,000 to continue doing fuel mitigation projects at a larger scale. Those will be at about $25,000 each for folks that apply in communities or partnering organizations. I think that is, yeah, that's all I have if you have any questions.
Wait, an update.
I saw, and sort of starting to spill into the input on the draft work amendment. I saw that there was a concept for wildfire preparedness discussions in the community. I was curious what that, what people were envisioning there. I mean, just kind of keeping up with current policy topics, but it could be really specifically focused on defensible space, the model defensible space codes from OSFM, could be broader. One of the things that you and I have talked about this a number of times, I'm particularly interested in seeing or hoping that we can make some progress on is figuring out how to make it easier, cheaper, and safer for people to dispose of the material when they do defensible space. So we see it showing up as problems we see that material showing up as problems in various ways. Fills up our landfill to the tune of $600,000 worth of space for one fire-free event, or we see people who are doing debris burns at their house walk away for a couple of minutes and have an escape and turn into a 200-acre wildfire. Those are just a couple of the most significant examples, but it would be great. You mentioned the sweat equity bin rental program, where it's a rental program, or is it?
Correct, yeah, so we provide the funds, well, we fully cover the cost of the bin rentals, so communities receive a service award, and then depending on who they're covered by, Cascade Disposal or Public Services, Deschutes County Natural Resources works directly with the disposal company to cover that cost for the month of May and June.
Did they offer, discounts or kind of like, in various ways, partner, donate something to make that process work, or do we cover the full costs?
I think that they do have a discount for this particular program. I'm not sure how much that is reduced from what it would regularly be for someone to rent one of those containers.
And then what happens to the stuff afterwards? I mean, does it go somewhere and get shipped, or does it?
It just goes through, it goes into the compostable.
Compost.
Correct, yeah. And there are different rates for before the fire-free week, during, and then after.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, in support of this goal of making it safer, easier, cheaper for people to get rid of that material. It would be helpful to get like a full cost accounting, kind of following, all from beginning to, into the compost operation. How much that costs and annual costs.
Yeah.
So we could get like a, per unit cost.
Yeah.
To compare with other options and, put a little bit more analysis to this.
Yeah, it's certainly something that comes up in conversation, you're talking, you mentioned who's involved with the wildfire preparedness, federal, all the way down to local municipalities, community partners. It's something that comes up often in conversation. It would be worth exploring.
Yeah, I mean, and if you have, once we have numbers like that, then we can actually analyze things like biochar. It's like, okay, well, biochar production, mobile biochar production would be an alternative way to dispose, to deal with this, but it costs twice as much or half as much. And that tells us whether that's a viable or not viable concept. So we're ready to move into kind of.
Yeah, if you had any,
Discuss
yes, we're here
We're
to,
planning, but.
yeah, please,
And
please.
elements of this point.
And again, will be a public hearing on June 3rd, so not to mention deliberations will typically follow the week or two afterwards, so.
A great opportunity for us to ask questions, clarification.
Please, yes.
And, or if the commissioners have any initial feedback. To provide that as well. I've got some questions, but. go ahead.
Just, public comment pertaining to homeless. I know we're in that interesting dynamic where cities, want to partner with the county, and this has been my experience, but then we just don't have opportunity to kind of do anything. But at the planning commission, maybe an interesting place to just have a discussion about the big picture, referring to the dynamics with the cities. And I'm just opening up that a little bit, whatever that looks like, because obviously it's a sticky topic. We want to enjoy our public lands around us. We've seen, fire events and the public lands, the federally owned public lands. So just the dynamic there.
Yeah, the planning commission did discuss this topic as well as kind of regional transportation planning. It didn't elevate to a high priority, which is in the memo and some of, as you saw, it's kind of bottom of page 1, top of page 2. But there were certainly a few commissioners that did have strong opinions about that level of coordination, as well as, having a better understanding of how regional transportation systems work in the event of conflagration and, evacuation. So I think what we tried to do as staff, it would, you please, if I'm not quite capturing this correctly, but I think they wanted to communicate this topic without elevating it. And they did spend, 15-20 minutes talking about it, but when it came to the priority projects, which are captured in those 3 tables, it did not fall into that. So,
And it's just kind of a visioning statement too. It's like, okay, well, now we have a different dynamic here. It's just, it used to be simple private property and code enforcement, rural lots, and now there's development. It's a different time. So it's just kind of a visioning effort is my thought.
On page 5, the hearings officers. Are all 3 of those people not here? I mean, we keep having hearings officers that are not like in the room. And I saw Tommy Brooks' name first, and I went, okay, I know he's out of Portland. Have we had any success in getting that to be in the room?
please, you were Jeff.
So, for the planning, for the planning hearings officers, both Greg Franks and Tommy Brooks, although they're located in the Portland metro, both of them have family connections here, are usually pretty excited and come down when it works for them. They're not here every time, but they definitely are interested in coming down, particularly in the summer, when a kind of longer weekend associated with it. And one of the difficulties that we run into is that we're getting a relatively good deal on those services. Certainly, we could attract hearings officers who are either local or pay travel costs associated with them, but those costs, ultimately are passed some way on to the development community. So, if the board wanted to direct in the future to say that people in fact want to have hearings officers always in front of physically present, we can do that. There's just that ends up somewhere, the money comes from somewhere, and generally it's tacked on to the development fees. So this was a balance between availability and kind of overall fee schedule, but to the extent that you'd like to see additional resources and additional costs associated with hiring more local people to be available for that, we're totally game.
Well, I just know that it doesn't work out that well when they're on Zoom or the room is full of people. I get a lot of negative feedback. And then I do believe we've extended Jessica's position on the planning commission. I don't know if it should be noted here or not.
Yeah, good catch. She was given a 2-year extension, so we'll make sure when it's final,
Okay.
that's doing it. Yeah, thank you.
A few. On the topic of transportation planning and evacuation. I have heard some concerns raised in relation to evacuation from cities, from City of Bend or the City of Redmond. And I would encourage, if some of the County Planning Commission members are interested in talking about evacuation, I'd encourage them to go to the appropriate forums associated with those municipalities. So, this would be a great topic to, circle back, check in with the Bend MPO. Hey, you guys, I've been sitting on the MPO board, policy board for a long time. I've never heard any discussions of wildfire evacuation being a major transportation planning consideration at the MPO. So that would be I think a more appropriate and constructive place for planning commissioners to take those concerns than to try to make it part of the county planning commission's kind of core work. So that just a suggestion to feedback to planning commissioners. I did want to ask about this suggested childcare project. I very much, that is a high policy priority on my radar as well. But I don't know exactly what it means. Can you unpack a little bit? I sense, or I think I see that, there's been legislative changes or administrative rules or something, and what kind of opportunities are now opening up that we need to kind of connect with, reinforce through local land use planning.
So although this isn't a huge opportunity locally, there's been a legislative change to allow in certain circumstances childcare to be located in light industrial zones. You're gonna have a ton of those, but that's something that could very easily be added to the menu. We've talked to kind of childcare advocates from COCC talking about they do some work helping out potential providers trying navigating the system. We're acknowledging some of the difficulties of figuring out, how do you do this locally and how does our code approach it? So this would really be, we've been in a little bit of a holding pattern because we've got messaging from the LCD that we were going to get some model code and some really robust resources. It's unclear when that's going to come. And the latest messaging from them is like, maybe don't wait for us. So to the extent that the board directed us to do this, we would do a kind of a code top to bottom code and engagement and talk to the people who provide these services to see what their experience is like, see what zones he's going to be allowed in, see where, regulatory, non-mandatory regulatory, local regulations maybe are complicating that in a way that should be re-explored. So really just taking a look at this in a coherent way. What you really see now is, bits and pieces, duct tape and chicken wire that's been put in over decades into the code without a coherent vision of how that goes, and certainly not an effort to put together, you can imagine, for example, we thought about some of our new project ADUs, for example, that we made a really directed effort to create clear communication, web pages, inter-team integration. We treated childcare like other businesses, which, that typically have the resources, not childcare, but other businesses might have the resources, consulting, that sort of thing to navigate these systems, where childcare can a lot of times be a mom and pop operation and might benefit from more hand holding of the board with the direct CDD, direct efforts that way.
Yeah, no, I like that, yeah, it's, if we treat childcare like, other businesses who have the resources to hire very expensive attorneys, we may not get as much, interest in childcare in the unincorporated county as, if we do a little bit of hand assistance. It's great. One of the things that has come up in the last year and a half is a group called Forest School. They contacted you?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I think we've had a pre-app or two, outdoor school.
It's
Mostly.
it's early learning through grade 8. 6 or 8, I can't remember what, but they're the sites that they were using were becoming tenuous, like they weren't gonna be able to use those areas anymore, and then they were trying to figure out new locations, but then they were running into all kinds of land use questions. And their model is really outdoors. Like even in the winter, they're like, marching around little 40-year-olds and all bundled up. For big, huge chunks of the day. So they weren't as much interested in the building as, being like authorized to do what they wanted to do outside. So I'm just wondering whether some of this code review could kind of address the potential particular needs of that. Karen Prowl from Neighbor Impact, pointed them our way originally, and Karen Prowl, she sits right in the middle of that, kind of sector or network, and she doesn't kind of encourage things that aren't pretty serious, like significant childcare opportunities for our communities. So I'm glad to hear that they may have already contacted you, and hoping that when we make this text amendment a priority, that they could be woven into that process to just check out what their needs are.
Yeah, and that's, I was looking back, we've had some discussion with them over time. They're the one I'm thinking about. They were running this in a farm zone without permits. And the neighbor was concerned about road safety and asked the road department to say, hey, they're running a school. Could we see the speed limit slow down here? And everybody said, wait, they're running what? And of course, the state's very protective of farm zones, special carve outs for traditional K-12 schools, but it's kind of more extended childcare opportunities aren't as protected in the forest zone. And so it's been a while since I've been in the loop with them to see about their ongoing exploration for a property, but I can imagine without formal K-12 credentials, the farm zones are really tough for them to locate in. And to my knowledge, these childcare opportunities which are aligned with farm zones. So now you're looking for other property associated with that, but it's been
That sounds right.
months since I engaged on this.
So I thought that they had K through 6 as well, but I could be wrong about that, but maybe the part that they got busted for was the pre-K.
I will take a note here and check it with my team.
There is a farm school up in Ellensburg. That's where my niece's daughters go. It sounds adorable. I do have a question. Your population number, the 219, when I Google both of my phones, I come up with 214, 942 for their AI. I don't know, it's almost $5,000 more is what you're saying than what my phones are saying.
Yeah, the methodology that we have used for years is, and the report is actually gonna get updated.
Actually, it says
It's the 50-year population projection that Portland State has, and so you can do average annual growth rates when you know what the start is and what the end is, so I can share that spreadsheet if you're interested, but it's, I don't know if you the AI may be identifying like American Community Survey, but this is one report that demographers are using, and since we're projecting out, that seemed reasonable, but of course, when we get closer to 2030 and hit 2030 with census, everything kind of resets again, but long and the short, I'm not surprised the various estimates or projections are not in alignment. They're all using different methodologies, but we do rely on that 50-year forecast.
Well, it's a lot bigger than 1960,
Yeah,
2000.
we onboard, or I onboard our new employees as Nick did when he was in this position, and talk about our customer service, our culture, our mission. And then you introduce them to the kind of first portion of the work plan, and invariably you go to that section of the report, which shows our growth. Remind them, yeah, we're the fastest growing county in the state. We've been that way for decades, and they see kind of where the county is likely headed based on projections, and definitely captures their attention. And I think it's some reflection of it reflects the dynamic work environment that exists at CD and all departments for that matter as we continue to grow. So I find it to be a very powerful bar chart. Not very many counties in Oregon have such a chart.
Well, that was. I have a lot of green and yellow, but anyway, yeah, ready for you to come back.
Great, thank you.
I still have a couple please. So in your staff report, you mentioned that there was some discussion of manufactured home parks in the unincorporated county at the planning commission, but that didn't make it into the draft plan. I wanted to raise one particular opportunity or one particular concept that I think would be worthwhile considering bringing into the draft plan. This past year, we saw the legislature create opportunities for expedited UGB expansions for manufactured home parks. I had a chance to chat with some of the proponents behind that bill a little bit before that went to the session, and I said, well, that's that is potentially useful. If there might be these situations where there's property right on the edge of the urban growth boundary that says, hey, if I go this development route, then I get expedited access to urban growth boundary inclusion. That's a great opportunity. But I still think that it's worthwhile for us to be considering manufactured home parks close in to our cities, if not in our cities. And one of the key issues there in the past has been the underlying zoning density question. So, if you want to cite a manufactured home park on RR10, you get 1 unit per 10 acres, which in my opinion kind of defeats the entire opportunity and efficiency of a manufactured home park, which is basically to achieve somewhat higher densities and use land super efficiently to help bring down the costs. So when I spoke with the legislative staffers and some people who were not current employees of DLCD but had been past employees of DLCD, they said legislative action might be one way to get at that density cap tied to underlying zoning, but a whole other approach might be to initiate a rulemaking at DLCD. And that could be done from inside DLCD, but they said probably go faster and have a little bit more oomph and priority within the agency if it was initiated from outside. So that's, that's kind of what I'd like to put on the table for the Board of Commissioners is. Would we consider sponsoring a rulemaking change? Putting forward a request for a rulemaking change to allow higher density manufactured home parks in the unincorporated county.
And if I may, we had spoken about this previously, and I've got kind of a 3/4 drafted paper that I was gonna bring, kind of white paper that I was gonna bring back to you about manufactured home parks generally, and Commissioner Bone also had some questions about those. Really dug in on the constraints and, there's, with manufactured home parks generally, there was discussions about, existing ones and the difficulty of expanding that. A lot of that comes into septic and infrastructure. A big local hitch is that we require parks that are upgrading to come fully up to modern standards as part of doing any upgrade to the park, whereas state code only requires certain health and safety and core infrastructure functions to be brought up to date. But to get to the point where you're talking about, exactly what you're crashing into is goal 14. As you put, when you think about manufactured home parks of the sort that you see in cities, relatively high density, those are urban uses that benefit from being on the bus line and being on the sewer and having all the infrastructure associated with it. So from a big planning perspective, where should those go? Those should be in cities where they have all those resources, but we also have trouble getting people to build them voluntarily in cities. So then you see, to your second point, carve out UGB expansions that allow somebody to have some enhanced development opportunity with city infrastructure, so you get the problem of sewage solved associated with that, because you don't need a goal exception to get wastewater services or water services associated with it. The next step out, which you're just pointing at, would really be, I think, a carve out in goal 14 that would say that manufactured home parks of a certain density, with these sideboards are inherently rural and don't require a goal exception. You could imagine, when you think about goal 14, what it says is lotting patterns or densities that are smaller than 1 unit per 2 acres are almost always inherently urban. And things that have lotting patterns that are greater than 10 acres or effective densities greater than 10 acres are generally rural. But you could imagine something in the middle that you could say, look, a manufactured home park that is within X space of the X distance of the UGB, has an effective density of X units per acre, where X is something greater than 2. With these sideboards and considerations in these circumstances will be seen by goal 14 as inherently rural and won't require a goal exception to go through it. I think that's sort of the space you're pointing in.
Yeah, and I really do think that, I wanna be mindful that those water and wastewater infrastructure constraints are real. It seems like providing these kind of higher density, manufactured home park opportunities close into UGBs gives you those opportunities to tie into municipal infrastructure, or to be on an avion or a road system, for example. So the idea of kind of clipping this to a certain distance from the UGB, I think is a fine idea, because you get too much farther out, you're probably not going to be able to create the infrastructure necessary anyway. But close into UGBs, and then but then also in places like Tumalo and Terrebonne, right? So which these are manufactured home parks that are allowable use in unincorporated communities.
Certain ones, yes. And, in each case they run into and in the unincorporated communities, you're not running into those density limitations. You're typically running into wastewater difficulties. So,
and as we know, we are moving forward with new wastewater infrastructure in Terrebonne first, and then Tumalo. So, I think that this, some work on manufactured home parks, I think is a rich area to be exploring right now. And the concerns that Mr. DeBone raised as well, we can bundle all that stuff into the white paper you're working on plus.
yeah, and it might be interesting. There's nothing magic about the manufactured home, right? So it would be tricky to think about why you would afford it to those uses versus stick-built tiny homes or something like that. If it's in fact a diminished housing opportunity at higher density for smaller units, you know, manufactured home is of course always the kind of the poster child for that, but you know, if you had a site-built tiny home that occupied the same space, for example, you know, would you want to afford that opportunity, or is there a reason? Either infrastructure or logistically to, you know, make special carve-outs for those uses, so it'd be interesting to see what else is possible in that space, because, you know, in the end, what the box that someone's living in is made out of isn't really as interesting as, you know, how many times do they come to a car, how many times they flush their toilet, you know, do they need a playground for their kids?
Yeah, and there's also, like, there's all this innovation going on in modular construction. That, you know, you could be building these units, 800 square foot units in a factory somewhere, and then just bringing them to a site and you know, putting them down on a foundation or comparable, you know, sturdy pad for siting those. You know, that's one of the other reasons why I think that, you know, this kind of re-emerging interest in manufactured home parks is really interesting, because it creates opportunities, yeah, again, not just for the traditional kind of mobile home that we've seen, but all, you know, a whole bunch of different kinds of housing options.
To the extent that there's that white paper, the direction, if you want, the board could offer that, you know, since next month. I could see that, what's called a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. There's, I mean, as I recall, the state building code takes a different, has a unique view of modular construction, I think, and as I recall, but anyway, it's, you know, identify kind of what the goal is, and then everyone here has, you know, is a specialist and can share the friction points. And then ideally, if that gets captured in this white paper, it can help inform potentially a legislative concept that goes to the board, that goes to the legislative delegation, and, you know, with some real context and perspective. So we're happy, please know, we're happy to undertake that level of engagement as the board tries.
Or again, if you know, if folks outside of DLCD are saying, you don't need legislation for that change, we just need rulemaking, then you launch those kinds of efforts as well.
Yeah, I understand that process.
And that's something that we can, you know, rather than using, you know, working through a legislator, that's something that the county could do directly.
If I know, Will, there's, from a building perspective, there's a difference between your stick-built manufactured home park and a manufactured home park.
Exactly.
So we'd have to look at that.
I actually had somebody who has, I think it's like 52 acres right by our 500 acres where they want to put the solar farm, that was trying to get it into, you know, allowing them to build 300 or to bring in 300 manufactured homes, single wides, you know, for affordable housing. And it was just right outside the UGB. Do you think I could ever get anywhere with that? But now those people are actually having a project perhaps going in Redmond within they have some other property up there. They're looking at doing something. But no, it was a couple years and I didn't get anywhere. But, you know, it's a great early into housing for the community.
And everything that I'm hearing is the 2027 legislative session a lot's gonna be on the table. Of course, there's no limitations on the number of bills.
Oh, that's right.
So, the timing of this topic, I think is very right, you know, as we kind of provide some side rails on it, so we understand, you know, the goal, the interest, the opportunities, the challenges on a host of disciplines, but, yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of, opportunity in the regular session in Salem, as the state is really, I think, gonna be invested in housing among other issues, resiliency.
Affordable housing, actually affordable. Yes.
So is there support to have this as a potential work plan item on the board, or
I'll
to
look at my old bill that I worked on, see what,
tuck this under the housing strategies number 12
maybe that's what we're talking about.
Yes, and what I can do, Commissioner Chair Chang, is I can bring it up on the third, work session topic identified. The work session on the work plan brought up this topic and allow the three of you to kind of build off of it. And typically, there's an open record period, and now once it puts you in a nice position to deliberate, and we can make the corrections or revisions as you see fit. So we really appreciate this opportunity. Thanks to our colleagues for a longer, I think I probably would have put 20 or 30 minutes. Brenda, so sorry, but we appreciate the dialogue and the engagement. It's important to us.
So a comprehensive plan is gonna be a project here going in front of us at some point. What's that look like?
Yeah, certainly. So we've received the remand to LUBA because it's a legislative action. Normally remands, we have 180 days to initiate. That's still true. But then you have 120 days to process, which requires a very expedited schedule. So once we're looking to early next month, bring before you a presentation on that remand, see what the board's pleasure is in terms of engaging with that remand and beginning a local process to try to address the concerns that Luba brought up. Specifically, those concerns have to do with the procedural step and how we did the circle because of the types of changes that were made in the last time we touched it, the planning commission needed to have some review of that. So a return to that would be required, as well as a discussion about how cluster and plan developments work for some of our more recent plan amendment zone changes. Of course, those things are they're not taking exceptions to goal 3 or goal 4, so they become non-resource plans. And so they need to be treated differently under goal 14 with regard to cluster and plan developments and
Just timing wise,
Oh.
because we can talk about that the rest of the
yes,
But yeah,
early next month.
there you go.
We're talking June. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jeff. What an
There
opportunity.
you go.
Thank you.
I mean it. No, thank you so much, because I just. Something else going on a couple loose rows, I hear very confident.
So next up on our agenda is performance measures update for quarter 3 of FY 26. And you're gonna bring people up here?
Yep. Do you wanna,
Same time, or do you?
I was gonna do one at a time. Do you want, right now I have assessors IT, community justice, but I saw the judge walked in. Do you wanna change that order at all or just keep that in order?
The kids in your kid in volleyball.
Yeah.
In order?
I did get that.
Or I mean, so is the judge's time?
Not that I work. Just policy. All right, good afternoon, Jen Patterson, Strategic Initiatives Manager. I am here before you today to give an update on fiscal year 26 Q3 performance measures. Just a quick little background on performance measures. Once a year during the board's annual retreat, typically the board sets the goals and objectives for the coming year. Each department takes those goals and objectives and sets out performance measures for each of their departments to hit. And then we check in periodically, quarterly on those performance measures, typically choosing 1 or 2 of those goals or objectives each quarter, and then bringing a couple of departments before you to give those updates. So for Q3, service delivery was chosen, and we have 3 departments here to provide updates. We have the assessor's office, we have information technology, and we have community justice. Justice Court. So we'll go, typically I do this in order, alphabetical order by departments. So first up, we have Assessor Scott Langton here to provide his performance measures.
Why elected officials here.
Good afternoon. For the record, Scott Langton County Assessor. But hey, let's start with the trivia question. 46 years ago today,
46.
you know?
I do.
1990.
About St. Helens.
Oh, that's right. It was Mount St. Helens.
St. Helens eruption.
I was in,
Yeah.
I was in Woodinville and it all went dark.
It was freaky. Yeah.
Did it go dark
Yeah,
here
no,
too?
well, I was in Beaverton.
Okay,
We
well,
went up on the hill and watched it. Yep.
they said, like 57 people died or something?
Well, luckily, because it was on a Sunday. If it would have been any other day, it would have taken a lot more people out because they were logging.
Oh, yeah, no, I remember it went dark in Seattle. So
There
the
you go.
weather got way better.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay, that's the update. 46 years later.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
It made the news this morning.
So, I guess the first objective would be, getting the tax statements out timely, just for a little clarification and understanding. When you look at the property tax bill, virtually every piece of information you see on that is out of the assessor's office. The actual paper printing, mailing is, and that's out of the tax office. So that's where that distinction and handoff comes out. So as far as we have to get it to the tax office timely enough, they can get everything printed by statute. It has to be postmarked no later than the 25th. And we usually try a couple weeks ahead of that, just to, not have too big of the rush, because of course that first payment's due on November 15th. And bottom line, even though there's an awful lot of stuff that goes behind that property tax bill, that's the only reason my office exists, and the tax office. It's to get those bills out for services that the voters decided at one point in time or another they wanted to the service providers. So, once again, we're successfully able to do that. They got that out, so. I don't know if there's questions on that, or pretty
So you're saying
straightforward.
you don't really mail them by October 25th, but you're definitely upstream from that.
Oh, they're usually out a couple weeks before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's statutory mandated when they have to be. So,
Well, should we change the performance measure to say information to the tax to the collector before some date?
oh, we could.
Yeah, so I'm just saying. Maybe a little bit
This is more,
precise.
but this is more generic where the layperson will understand.
Yeah.
So, semantics, but yeah, it doesn't matter to me one way or another. It's whatever your wishes are. And then the other two measures we have is, of course, Oregon Department of Revenues and Oversight Agency has some statutory authority there. The ratio study is, we're still mandated 100% real market value every property every year. So we do that a lot of different ways. Of course, all the new construction, we've got boots on the ground looking at it. We're getting bids, we're getting blueprints, a lot of different discovery mechanisms, getting out there, getting those on the tax roll. But we still have to maintain all the existing properties, and a lot of that's done statistically, where we get a copy every recording. Because of course we have to update our records to reflect that as well on the tax statement. Where a disclosure states that they have to put down what the consideration was. Look at MLS, we have a lot of different tools to look, and we're statistically measuring and saying, okay, this is what we had on the tax roll last year. These properties that sold and all those similar that didn't sell, how do we need to adjust those to maintain that value? There's an annual report required every year. Department of Revenue actually has to bless it. And they'll send a letter saying they accept that. We're in the middle of that right now. That won't happen until, and I guess it depends, because the tax year and the fiscal year don't line up. We successfully did that, and we got that approval last August. I don't see any problems getting it again this next August. And like the technology we talked about in the budget last week, using AI is going to help us tremendously on that modeling to get a better product and free up some of those staff resources that we allocate other places. Questions on that? Good. And the other one is the CAFA program. The Board of Commissioners approved that 4 weeks ago. That's an annual grant that we actually, based on our budget, we submit to the Oregon Department of Revenue along with all the other counties. And then there's some dollars that are collected locally through the $10 recording fee. And then a portion of the delinquent interest that then is allocated on a percentage basis back out based on wherever that pot of money is at the end of the year. So So we're in the middle of that. We should be getting that approval sometime in June. Oh, I
No
got.
question.
They're
Thank
pretty,
you
they're
so
pretty
much.
straightforward, so.
Either done or not done.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pass fail
Yeah.
for this business, so.
Well, I mean, what's sort of summed up by these measures is all the work that the assessor's office is doing every day of the year to ensure that our, you know, our assessed property tax rolls are accurate and fair.
Correct, yeah, there's a lot of different parts from the mapping, keeping the tax lots up, which is the base for GIS. The values, the calculation of what those taxes are, and all that, so a lot of different moving parts. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
You've got a long walk ahead of you now.
Yeah.
Don't get lost.
Next up is information and technology with IT Director Tanya Mahood and IT Operations Manager Wojtek Baroki.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, so we have two measures. The first measure is around our .gov transition. So we did receive a grant last year, and we are in the process of transitioning to DeschutesCounty.gov. Talked a little bit about the website last week. That is one part of the website transition. We have other websites that we do need to transition, like dial.deschutes.org. And then we'll work on email and then finally printed material. So we're still in progress with all of that, but at least the website has moved over. So any questions around that one?
It's just one website out there now?
So we have just, well,
No.
no, because we have DeschutesCounty.gov, which Deschutes.org pushes to DeschutesCounty.gov, but we also have other departments that have other sites.
Yeah.
And so now we'll have conversations with them of, hey, do you want to move in? Because the capability and the usability of the previous site was not something that folks enjoy.
More transition could happen.
So we could transition more folks from other sites into this one. So there's a possibility or not. It's all up to the department office if they want to. So. Yeah. So that's the .gov transition. You'll hear more as we go along with email, of course, and printed material. So that's a bigger project. A lot of the .gov for the website was on the contractor side. They were doing all the migration. That wasn't us. But now the work is on us for all the rest of the work to go to .gov. Any questions on that measure?
DeschutesCounty.gov,
You
not
got
just
it.
Deschutes.
I know. I wish.
It took me a moment when I typed it in, I didn't put the county in there.
I know, and it's longer, it's not ideal, but
Deschutes.org was good for South West.
I agree. If we could, we would have.
No.
I think the worst is to be in both, right? So the goal is now to lead more with the gov, right? And then our Deschutes.org will kind of continue to function behind the scene. We can start promoting internally, and as Tanya said, email address, all the web properties will start being DeschutesCounty.gov and becomes a thing. We are kind of in between worlds today, which is probably the worst situation to be in.
Yeah, so we gotta get.
Challenging times.
Yeah, and we are engaging every department for this, which is great. It's not IT, well, IT may be led, but we have every department has their story, how they want to be out there with the public. So I think Brianna has been a great partner, and now every department kind of selects their journey over the next 13 months. You should see more of .gov. Okay.
Great, we'll keep you busy. The IT group.
Oh, for sure.
All right.
Okay, the second measure, really proud of that one, as this really puts the investments into the Microsoft 365 product into motion. We implemented endpoint management solution about a year ago, and then really we started two years ago, but we started enrolling devices systematically, the endpoints into it, which really allows us to exercise governance and security for those devices. So
I want to just quickly, an endpoint is anything that is like a computer, a laptop, a phone, things like that.
yeah, let me clarify that. So Yeah, so when you look at the infrastructure endpoints, anything that our employees use as kind of a computing device. So primarily we have laptops and desktops, most notably, and then we also have mobile devices, which is mostly iPhone and iPad devices out there. Total about 2,100. It varies. The 95% number really represents what we can now see, support, and secure. The last 5% is going to be probably the longest journey. This is now more operational than necessarily a project. So as we discover them, we have some scripts and automation in place. We also rely on departments when they have something that's not on the network necessarily to let us know. So we have built partnerships to let us know, or as we do physical inventories, we discover those. And because of the endpoint management solution, we're able to execute projects like Windows 11 within 3 months. That looked like close to impossible project, but we met the October 15th deadline. We introduced Password Manager. We have about 62% adoption of that. We started looking at more securing of the endpoint and governance on those devices. So just that visibility across, we now manage a state. We don't go device by device. We set a policy and we execute it through the system. That's where Microsoft really shines. And it's been a journey and it continues to be, but it's just much easier to really kind of manage the whole ecosystem, not to have many people reaching out to many devices out there.
So 95% was, yeah, the first part, then the rest is gonna be chasing them for the rest of the time, basically.
Anything 100% is.
So this is my personal device, but it has an Outlook login that I use. So is that an endpoint because it's logging into Outlook?
Correct.
Yep.
Yep. So we have a little bit less visibility around those, but at least we have some
The Outlook's a
visibility.
controlled environment though.
Outlook. It's
Yes.
controlled in a way that we can remove it. It's not controlled in the way that we could set policy or make sure you put a PIN code on your phone, or that is
How do you
another
get to
level.
it? Yeah.
So we'll need to get, and that's called mobile device management in that way, for controlled endpoints. We don't have that for iPhones yet. In some places around the county, we do, but we really need the enterprise to get on with that, and it's gonna take us. But at least we can remove it, if needed.
Yeah.
So that's the bare minimum.
Thank you so much. It's good to just take a moment and figure out the accomplishments of the organization, these little things to say, we're gonna do this. Oh, good, we did that. So congratulations. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, we have Justice Court with Judge Fadley here.
Hello.
Thank you. Long time no see, last week.
Yeah. No, I know a couple of you are pretty busy with other stuff. I was only asked to report on one objective: service delivery, and it's defined as continue to enhance community participation and proactively welcome residents to engage with county programs, services, and policy deliberations. And the performance measure is 90% resolution of small claims cases before trial. So when you have a trial, there's a winner and a loser. And if you can resolve that by the parties settling it beforehand, and normally these are not legal issues. If there are folks that can't communicate with each other and have a grievance, both of them, so they can't ever have a rational communication about it. If you can solve it with a resolution that's not jammed down one person's or the other's throat, then hopefully they had some control over that, and that'll be the end of it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the idea. We are meeting our performance measure. We have about 600 small claims cases a year. About 90% of them, the other party will not file an answer. And when they don't file an answer, it's either because the party settled, or more likely they just didn't file an answer, and that party that filed the claim gets a judgment by default. And the cases that are left, that are at what lawyers call at issue, there's claim filed, answer to the claim filed, go to mandatory mediation in front of community volunteers that are not legally trained, but they're trained in dispute resolution, and they're doing this because they're good people, and they're very good at getting folks to try and, saying, you still control what's going on here. This is somebody who doesn't have a dog in the fight, who can give them their objective view of where they are, here are your strengths, here are your weaknesses to both parties. And they resolve about half of those cases and the rest go to trial.
So did you hear on the news that they said one of the traffic cameras might have been stolen or something?
It was vandalized apparently, yeah, I'm not surprised. It's gonna be.
Like taken out of commission?
I don't know anything more than vandalized, but they had a picture of it, it was still standing, so I don't know. I'm sure the county will still go ahead with the other cameras while
The
they
city?
fix that one, or the city, excuse me, yes. The
Not us.
Yeah.
city, yes, of course.
We don't, yeah, it's not us.
Nope. That was interesting as well. Did you see the Statesman Journal article this morning about the city of Salem? It just popped up this morning. Cameras at 6 Salem intersections led to 18,601 red light and speeding citations in 2025 and generated $3.3 billion of revenue. So that's just being reported just today.
In Salem.
In Salem, city of Salem.
18,000 and 3 million. That's more than. I mean, we're expecting another 20,000 citations for justice court. We only have 6,000 a year.
Yeah.
And the numbers we're projecting about the revenue that would actually go to the county are nothing like that. Absolutely nothing like that. And we're gonna
Much less.
yes, and so what the county will get. County won't make any money off of this because we'll be about solvent justice court. I think we can pay our bills. And it's the same thing for the city of Redmond. They had to hire other people and they have to pay the vendor. The vendor keeps getting paid during this entire thing. And it's pretty lucrative really. And so they're in the same boat. They're just doing it to try and change behavior.
Yeah. I'll send you the article. It was just.
Yes, would you?
It was just
Yes.
popped up and I thought,
Yes.
oh gosh, here you are.
Oh my God, yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
well,
it's
maybe
like
that's
No, it's
about
160.
right.
It's $166 a ticket approximately.
Yeah, that's what it would be.
Well,
What
that's
did they
for
say?
3
Did
million
they say
and
3 million or 30 million?
Total revenue, 3.3 million.
Okay, no, that might be about right.
And this is red light and speeding.
Right.
Citations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speeding tickets are
Right.
265 and the red lights are speeding tickets are 165 and the red lights will be 265. Speeding ticket on average depends on how fast you're going. And then you're not getting all that. That doesn't mean you're gonna get it, but that's what they're realizing. That's what the article says. That's what they've taken in. That's not what they built, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that might be about right.
The volunteer mediators,
Yes.
are you coordinate, does the justice court coordinate them or?
Yeah, we schedule them. We don't do any training or anything. I have lunch with them once a year to thank them. There's a company called Community Services, which does mediation and dispute resolution and is a county partner. And we pay the mediators, we actually pay the mediators by mediation. So that's how they get their money to run their program. But again, they do other things. They do like, HOA disputes and stuff like that.
Community Solutions.
Community Solutions, that's.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
So-
yes, I agree.
Glad you're taking them to lunch once they're good.
At least they could do. Well, without them, my life would have completely imploded years ago. Now it's going to implode in 30 days, but I wouldn't have, I've been doing this for 22 years. I wouldn't have been doing this that long. Anything else?
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nope, that's all from me. Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear about so much positive progress and good service and performance at so many levels or from so many departments.
And I'll just say, I know we're a little bit late being mid-May for these ones. We just had some scheduling conflicts with the different departments. So we had to push it back a couple different times. So we try to go a little earlier, but yeah. All right, thank you.
Right. So we did flag that we wanted to discuss the Alfalfa Fire District a little bit under other items.
I'll just acknowledge that, yeah, so I think it was the end of last year, we got notified that they may have been on a list of not doing their financial reporting to the state or something, yeah, the audits. So I did go to their board meeting last December. And I, communicated with the chief there, I said, gotta get the finances in order. But yeah, today we heard about it, I had a call from the Franklin newspaper. Yeah, I think he was online, but yeah, so just notified, hey, have you heard that still haven't gotten this figured out yet? So it's a special district, it's not under the county proper, but it's just like that vector control district or the park district, it's a district, and if they have, bumps in the road, it may come our way because it's mentioned that they might not have quorum right now. A couple of board members have either walked away or mentioned they may walk away, so that's all. I mean, I don't know more than that at this point in time.
We received information today that they do in fact have a quorum, so there's.
Okay, yeah, good.
Any action necessary by the board.
Okay,
One of the resignations was rescinded.
there you go. As I say, it was just kind of happening before I came to this
Yeah.
meeting.
It's been evolving.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and I mean, if I understand correctly, as long as they have a quorum, there's not really a role for the county, a formal role for the county, so. We'll stay tuned to see what happens. There's definitely community members who are expressing concern for the future of their fire district that they really rely on to protect their homes in case of fire. And I hope that their whatever governance and financial issues they're dealing with, that the district is able to pull it together and resolve whatever concerns they have, so they can continue to function.
Do you know, have the financial reporting, has that been caught up?
I don't know anything about financial reporting.
Okay,
To say that's where 6 months ago it popped up, so that's may not be resolved,
I've got the vector control in my desk, in my calendar, just to bring it back up, because I don't wanna wait for a year. I wanna make sure that they actually have followed through with what they're saying they're doing, so. Yeah, I mean, we really, considering I just saw that the Reagan Library was being evacuated. We have to be, we've got to actually make sure that Alfalfa is functioning. Even though, okay, we don't have a real responsibility, and yet we do have citizens that live
Oh,
out
yeah.
there.
I understand, but from a legal perspective, the board does not have any type of governance ability over that district. Vector control is different.
Okay, vector, we have more control.
Correct.
Oh, good.
And I did suggest to some of the people who I spoke with that the Special Districts Association of Oregon is, this is part of what the SDAO exists to deal with. To help districts when they are experiencing, complicated governance or financial problems, so. Hopefully, the Alfalfa Fire District is taking full advantage of their membership in the SDAO and the resources there.
So a little update, Commissioner Derry mentioned the vector control district. I did see Ed Horvath on Friday morning at the Pine Chamber breakfast. We got talking about the district. He thinks they have dialed in pretty well. They were able to do pre-treating in the wetlands, the edge of the river, under their current permitting. They have fogger drivers that are certified and ready to go. They have their equipment dialed in and calibrated. They also have a new website, fourriversmosquito.org. fourrivermosquitoes.org, which is kind of the next step in automation. He said, whenever we get a phone call or an online request for service or complaint about mosquitoes.
Or they want to opt out?
So they're gonna geolocate everything, and for people that don't want to be sprayed, they're gonna have it automated where they'll know exactly where to turn off their foggers. So he thinks he took it up to the whole next level, and everybody's gonna be very pleased with it. And it does fit back to, they also fit back to this website. And they also have a answering company, so somebody will always answer no matter what time of day, because they'll just route it into their information queue. So he was pretty proud of all the things they've taken and done.
Oh, good.
Hopefully they're up on a new foot now.
And they've done their finances. Yeah, he said he's caught up for a couple of years because they were getting behind on their audits also.
Behind wasn't the word. It was a pretty big mess.
Other items? Well, I'll let my fellow commissioners know that, last week, on a very short notice, I provided a letter of support for Mazama Energy for their enhanced geothermal systems project to, the Department of Energy. Just kind of came together at the last minute. This afternoon, there will be a meeting of the Regional Housing Council. Yeah, those are key things on my end.
I got that same letter coming together also. I'm sending. So we just got to, yeah, ask a bit of a pass or whatever, but
Yeah, well, I guess if they had coordinated us, we could have sent them a letter from the full board.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Any additional other items?
tomorrow, Hayden Homes is doing a groundbreaking in, Redmond, so I'll be speaking real quick at that one. 3 o'clock.
Well, if there are no additional other items, we can move on to our executive session for the day.
I thought we did nothing.
I'm not, wouldn't hear, would be here.
That was dropped off the agenda.
It was just the standing one that, requested relating to labor negotiations. I'm not aware of anything that's necessary.
Very good. Yep, it's on our agenda, but doesn't. We have no need for an executive session today, so with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.